it's time for me to introduce Matti Olofsson, who's the CCO at Junglemap. Hi, and welcome.
Thank you.
What does a CCO do for people who don't know at Junglemap?
Basically, grow business. Yeah.
Yes. But you're also, just like Anna, very interested in learning how it actually works, but from a slightly different perspective. So tell us about it.
Yes, because if you look at what the pedagogical research says, it's very well aligned with this. To summarize those researches, you could talk about 3 R's: repetition, reflection, and reinforcement of knowledge over time. So that is, in the studies and research around pedagogical topics, they find out that there are different learning techniques you could use to get a more effective learning. And learning techniques is not to be compared with learning styles, because that is a myth. We don't learn differently. Everyone learns the same way. But one of the most effective techniques you could use is the spacing effect, or spaced repetition, which actually means if we're going to be good at something, we have to repeat it, and practice. And it means everything. And another technique that is important is retrieval practice. And that means bringing in front what you have learned before. And basically that is very effective. And you could do that by tests, of course, or reflection. Just reflect on what you have learned. So studies shown that if I read a paper, I'm going to do an exam of it. If I just read it once, I will probably have half of it correctly. But if I repeat it, then I will do better. But instead of reading the paper twice, I do a retrieval practice of it, reflection about it. You will have significant better result. So there are several learning techniques you could use, but those are 2 of them that are pretty important if we're going to have an effective learning. Because learning is a process, it's not an event. That's basically...
And I said in the intro, sort of assume that corporate learning isn't really done in the right way. Do you agree with that statement, and why not?
Yes. Basically, look at how companies do training today. Well, you do it once a year. 1 hour online training, e-learning, for example, you make it mandatory. Everyone should do it once a year.
A workshop or something, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we know that learning is a process. It's not an event. And that is, I think it's just because, you're so compliant driven. And that's, okay, we need to train our employees. Now we have this, okay, really need to do it, sustainability or whatever it is, and put them all into the company classroom, because that's what they have, the LMS, the learning platform, etc. That's try to build, corporate classroom, and you do it once a year because that's the time they have for it.
Anna, do you agree?
Absolutely. And this idea of separating the learning from what we do for business, sort of, that's a complete misunderstanding of what learning is about. And I completely agree with you with the retrieval part, since we talk so much about repetition. And I even wish to exchange that R and not have repetition within those R's, as in people think that just over and over being exposed to something will generate learning. And that sort of repetition, because that's also repetition, being exposed to something over and over again. But that's not learning. And people get fooled by that. So as you said, it's the retrieval part, that kind of repetition, that it's actually becoming learning. So when we realize that we are not a computer that needs to be programmed, we are something that needs to retrieve over and over again. And that's how we establish the knowledge.
So just to make it a little bit more hands-on, how would you design, I know this is a huge question, but if you were to design a program, a learning program of sorts, how would you design it?
Okay. You go first.
Yeah.
You go first.
Well, basically, what we have to start realize is that learning is a process. It's not something you can just do once a year. So creating the learning process and get the reflection part of it is the retrieval part is essential into this. And you can't just take it out of the work life, because we learn all the time. We learn why we work basically all the time. And we have to bring learning into our behaviors and our habits, because that's when the learning is happened.
And that means bringing it up on the agenda, making room in the calendar, making the office in a way that actually promotes reflection and not just production and consumption. So we need to think about all these aspects of our workday in order to get learning into the everyday process of everyday work life.
Yeah, I love that. So integrated, realize that it's a process, but also repeat and retrieve. That's sort of some of the key points.
And expression.
Expression. Oh, yeah, because that's when you realize if you have learned it or not.